Calling to order. Everyone please stand for the salute to the flag. An oath of office for the new board member.
Before that, you have
Okay. So the board interviewed candidates for the vacancy left by the board member Tom Colucci. All of the candidates were excellent, and I thank everyone who applied. For those who are not the successful candidates tonight, I strongly encourage you to run for the seat in November's opening. I will now call for nominations for the open seat. Mr. Sargent?
I nominate Mr. Spaltoff. We have a second?
Well, second.
Are there any other nominations?
Yes. Mr. Cloud. Can't hear you. Mr. Clappin.
Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations?
Yes, Dr. Osmond.
So we've got 3 candidates. Madam President, you should now ask for a motion to close the nominations.
Can I have a motion to close
Been moved.
nominations?
You need a second? All in favor on closing the nominations? All in
Aye.
favor? Any opposed? Okay, so our policy, can somebody turn off the mic, the other mics? Yeah, getting an echo. So our policy says that we are to vote on the candidates in the order in which they are received. And so we will vote on Mr. Spaltoff, who is the first candidate nominated. Ms. Richardson, and this would go into item number 1 on the agenda. Ms. Richardson, if you could do a roll call, please.
Yes.
No, yeah, okay. The question is, do you support the nomination of Mr. Spaltoff?
He says no.
Mr. Bernetsky.
Yes.
Mr. Sargent.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera.
Yes.
Point of order, please.
Yes, Mr. Spaltoff is the successful candidate for the position.
Madam President, no position, I will call for Mrs. Spaltoff.
No. Mr. Alstaveda would like to change his vote to a yes. Mr. Spaltoff is the successful candidate. Congratulations. I think Ms. Richardson will now swear you in.
We'll just turn it around. So I can hold it. Do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey. And that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the government established in the United States. And in this state, under the authority of the people, so help me God. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of a Board of Education. Am not disqualified as a voter. Am not disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense. And that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Now we're on the approval of the agenda. I need a motion for approval of the agenda with addendums.
Motion. Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Herman?
Yes.
Mr. Acevedo?
Yes.
Mr. Burnett?
Yes.
Mr. Sargent?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Apologize, I missed our new board member. Mrs. Rivera?
Yes. We have a Board of Education recognition.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we have the privilege of recognizing one of our bus drivers, Ms. Johnson. I also had the privilege of meeting with her a few weeks ago in regards to not only her dedication to the Jackson students, but her dedication and heart to everybody that she works with as well. It takes all of us in this district to educate our students and to keep them safe. And tonight, the board would like to recognize Ms. Johnson in regards to her heart and her compassion and her dedication to the Jackson School District. So I'm going to turn it over to the board president to make that recognition.
Each day, our bus drivers do an amazing job making sure our students get to school and back home safely. Tonight, we have the pleasure of recognizing one of our drivers for going above and beyond in this responsibility and for coming to the aid of one of our students with great kindness. Shalene Johnson was finishing up a very long day when she encountered a student in need. She didn't think twice about taking the time to help this student, going out of her way to show kindness and support in a way that made the student feel safe. Ms. Johnson has told us that she doesn't feel like she needs to be recognized for helping another, and that she was just in the right place at the right time, but we disagree. On behalf of the Board of Education, it is our pleasure to recognize bus driver Shalene Johnson for demonstrating responsibility, kindness, and compassion in a way that brings pride to not only herself, but to our entire district. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Please come.
Now you gotta make a speech.
Being conscientious is the trait which, many researchers say is the #1 indicator of success. Our bus driver, Ms. Johnson, for what she did, being conscientious, looking, seeing everything going on around her, is the epitome of what it means to be a Jackson employee, and we thank you.
I just want to say thank you. I'm so grateful. I did not see this coming. I'm not supposed to be halfway crying right now. So I want to thank each and every one of you for recognizing me. And yes, I felt like I didn't deserve it, but my Most High God does. I honor him. I give him all the honor and glory because he chose me to be at the right place at the right time. And on that particular night, Shalene Johnson don't come in at 5:35, 40, trying to fill her bottles up with the sanitizing solution for the seats. And that's exactly what I did. And by the time I did that, I was walking to the building. I see this little girl named Renee. I think she was more brave than I was, so I had to hold myself together. But I just thank God that he chose me. I get choked up when I think about it because he knows my heart. He knows who I am. as a mother. I raised 2 sons basically on my own. I have a slew of nieces and nephews since they were born. My house was always the neighborhood house, so kids are everything to me. So I just want to say thank you for this. It means so much to me. And it's never happened to me before, and I receive it, and I thank you all so, so much. Thank you.
Yes. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Primelli for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Ms. Rivera. Thank you again, Ms. Johnson. What a beautiful family you have. There is also a letter being placed in Ms. Johnson's file for the absolute wonderful thing that she has done for a student here in Jackson. Some things you need to hug about, and I needed to give her a hug. So moving forward, we have our high school students here tonight. They have their mic off? Okay, good. Okay. We have our 2 high school reps here this evening to give their reports about the high school happenings. We'll start tonight with Tiffany Duffy from Memorial.
Good evening, Ms. Bormilli, board members, and everyone present here tonight. I'm here to brief you on the happenings at Jackson Memorial High School. March has been off to a great start at Jackson Memorial High School. As the weather and current circumstances are getting better, the Student Council is planning ahead for what spring events may entail. We're hoping to pull off certain events such as Powder Puff and a few others if the COVID-19 cases allow for it. The senior class is also moving ahead on planning our senior event. We're hoping the entire senior class will attend this day of fun-filled events, including water activities and outdoor sports. This past weekend at Jackson Memorial, we also hosted the SAT testing. March is a month full of preparing at Jackson Memorial. All of our AP students are gearing up to take their AP testing starting in May. For our seniors, March is very important. Obviously, for the class of 2021, making a decision on where we will belong for the next 4 years is something that is on our minds. Some of us have already committed, whether it be for sports or just from incredible acceptances. Other of us, like me, are still waiting to hear back from our final schools and beginning to visit some college campuses. Obviously, these visits include proper quarantining if traveling out of state. Overall, that May 1st commitment day is coming faster than we could have ever imagined, but the Jackson Memorial teachers, staff, and counselors have been there to help us navigate through the way. Overall, our Jaguar winter sports teams have had amazing closures to their seasons. Our spring sports teams are gearing up for their seasons, which they are very excited for since most of our spring sports got canceled due to COVID-19 last year. Overall, all through this time, our Jaguars have continued to push through whatever has been thrown at them. As time continues to go, we're confident that we will continue to gain more and more normalcy in our lives. And with that being said, I conclude my monthly student update report. Thank you again to Ms. Cormilli and the Jackson Board of Education for your continued support.
Thank you, Tiffany. Always very informative. Tonight, Jade Bramwell from Liberty couldn't be with us. She's doing some college visits, but we do have with us tonight Chris Kashi, who will give us an update from Liberty.
Good evening, everyone, and happy St. Patrick's Day. Thank you for having me speak at tonight's meeting. I hope that everyone is having a wonderful day filled with good fortune, and that you continue to have a prosperous month. Jade sends her apologies for not being able to attend today's meeting, as she's on a college visit right now, but I'm happy to take her place and will do my best to update you on what's been happening at Liberty. So, as our sports continue to transition into a new season, we are so proud of our Lions and all of the accomplishments they've made this past month. From our wonderful winter track athletes, Liz Rogel and Chelsea Levezzo, who won the opportunity to go to the track championship for the 55-meter dash. Also, to our very own basketball star, Dubem Emenuga, who is ranked 8th in the short for rebounds. Our lovely senior athletes, Maura Carney and Dubem again, received the Athlete of the Month awards at school. Fanique Dupree was selected to the first team for the short conference, Pod C, and Dallas Weiss and Dubem Emenuga were selected to the second team. Our very own Coach Don Connor was selected as Pod C's Coach of the Year. These accomplishments show that our line athletes are determined to not only be great athletes within our school, but that Liberty is determined to encourage our students to be the best they can be while breaking records and staying safe. We hope to see great things as the season continues with sports like volleyball, gymnastics, track, and wrestling. In the meantime, the spring teams are starting to have virtual meetings to plan for their seasons as well. Everyone is busy. As our athletes continue to practice, our very own Liberty's Drama Club is now working on their spring musical, Cinderella. They've continued to rehearse inside, but are continuing to keep the faith that they have practices in person soon. Due to the pandemic, adjustments have been made to push back their productions to April 22nd, 23rd, and 24th at 7 p.m. So make sure you watch virtually and come see the amazing performances of our talented artists who will grace you with their stage gifts. Our band has been working extra hard this year to keep their spirits high and the music flowing. The music department has been very, very busy, as the band is currently working on a virtual concert for the spring. The Band and Music Honor Society, Tri-M, are also gearing up to host this year's talent show virtually. They're currently accepting all applications and are excited to present everyone's talent. This gives everyone a chance to feel included and bring some more normalcy back into our school. The jazz band is also once again performing together after school, and they are loving the chance to be able to get together and make music again. They look forward to performing for everyone soon, and we're so proud of them. Another club that has been making strides within our community is the National Honor Society. The NHS is continuing to spread messages of love and positivity throughout the hallways of Liberty. They have started to create inspirational and happy posters around the school, and even themed ones for events such as St. Patrick's Day and Easter. NHS is additionally working with Nations Among Nations on getting volunteers to tutor children in Asbury Park via Google Meets every week. They're planning on reading children's stories to Holman and Crawford Elementary Schools as well. NHS also wishes to create an inspirational slideshow to show the remote students' appreciation in ways like nominating one remote student of the week to make sure that the remote students don't feel left out from the festivities. We are so lucky to have our NHS members give back to their community and classmates during this time. JTV is also doing wonderful things to not only help our Jackson community, but bring some more joy back into our homes and students' lives. JTV has been busy broadcasting an assortment of athletic events with both our broadcast truck and new gymnasium cameras in both high schools. These cameras were installed with the cooperation from Central Administration, JTV, and our school district electrical department. The new cameras give JTV the ability to broadcast every athletic event from the gyms in both high schools. They're also about to start preparing for their biggest event of the year, the Pharaohs. This year, the theme will be the evolution of music. This will give JTV, the drama club, dance team, and any other students a chance to showcase their creativity and love for the programs at our school. It is always an impressive show, and I know this year will be no different. With Women's History Month also upon us, Nations Among Nations is doing everything in its power to spread the message of women's rights and equality for all. NAN currently has their Women's History Month bulletin board, where the women in the club shared their feelings on this month. NAN will also be hosting a women's empowerment meeting on March 25th for the members of the club and have been working on a secret project as well. NAN has also been working with Asbury Park School District to finalize the details of their tutoring sessions. As they continue on their journey for more diversity and inclusion, we are so proud of our NAN members and their leader, Mr. Washington, who also won the Lion Award of the Month at our school. The month of March has gone by so fast for our Lions. With our first marking period ending this week and our spring break fast approaching, this month has been very eventful, with new sports in season and the second semester in full swing with synchronous learning. School is starting to feel like home again, more than ever. Liberty has not only adapted to the changes going on around them, but has done it smoothly. And as we reflect on this month, we are led by the words of Maya Angelou. Stepping onto a brand new path is difficult, but not more difficult than remaining in a situation which is not nurturing to the whole person. Our Lions are ready for the break that is coming soon, and they're ready to finish out their year strong. Thank you.
Nice job, Chris. Thank you for filling in for Jade, and very informative. Lots of great activities happening at both of our high schools. So moving on, I first would like to announce to the public some exciting news that we are live streaming the board meeting tonight, and we will continue to do that moving forward. We've learned through the pandemic that this is a great option for our community to be able to understand and learn about the things happening in the district and be more informed. So we are excited to announce that, and I want to thank our digital media staff and students who are helping with that live streaming. So thank you. Some other exciting news that I would like to share with our community is that we have been fortunate enough for the last 2 days to be able to have some opportunities to get some of our staff vaccinated for the COVID vaccine. So yesterday we received word from Atlantic City that they were reserving appointments specifically for educators and staff that works in schools. So we quickly got that information out to our staff, and we were fortunate enough that many of our staff members were able to quickly get some appointments. So that was exciting. But even more good news was yesterday that the ChemEd in Lakewood, led by Mr. Berkowitz, was able to offer our staff vaccinations tonight, this evening. I would really like to thank not only Mr. Berkowitz for this and making educators a priority for vaccinations, but Mr. Bernstein and Mr. Herman, who also worked to coordinate this for the district. And I'd like to thank the Lakewood Board of Ed for housing those vaccination as a vaccination site. So that was exciting. Many of our staff here will be vaccinated tonight with those appointments. So again, some really good news there. The staff were thrilled to be able to have those availabilities yesterday and today. I'd like to provide a quick update on our in-person planning. Our elementary students, our hybrid students, have been back now, combined Group 1 and Group 2, in our classrooms. I had the opportunity to visit all of the schools and many of the classrooms, and it was just wonderful to see their faces, their joy and excitement for being back. I'd ask the question, "Are you happy to be back in school?" And I'd get the big cheers, "Yes." So it was a pleasure, and our teachers are very happy as well to have all the students and most of the students in front of them. Things are going well in our combining of hybrid Group 1 and Group 2. We've had to recently just move a few classes to full remote based on some quarantining that was needed. So we do have a little bit of that happening, but right now we feel that we're being proactive enough that we can continue with this plan. As you know, we are also planning to combine Group 1 and Group 2 hybrid students on Monday at the middle school. That is well on track to begin, so we're excited for that. And just as with the elementary, we'll keep a watchful eye. We'll be cautious. We'll follow all of our protocols to make sure that we keep everybody as safe as possible. But it will be exciting to see those schools come alive again, and I know the teachers are looking forward to having the students in front of them as well. For high school, we are continuing to work on a plan to do the same at the high school level, and we are looking forward to hopefully making some announcement next week in regards to when we can make that next shift and pivot for our high school students. So that will be coming next week. Additionally, we are looking at our full remote students. Right now, these plans have been phased in for our hybrid learners, but there is continual planning going on for anything that we may be able to offer for any remote students who want to return to school as well. So there's lots of planning happening right now, and we're hopeful to make some announcements relatively soon. Tonight, we also have Mr. Maluski, our Director of Security, here with us. We have our annual first reporting period for the vandalism and violence report. So I would ask Mr. Maluski, if you're ready, to come on up to the podium and give us our first report for the school year.
Good evening, everyone. The first report that I'm going to present tonight is the semi-annual report on violence and vandalism in our school district. This period includes September to December of 2020. Just a little background and overview. The State of New Jersey Department of Education began collecting data in March of 2002. The objective of this data, or this collection of data, was to identify concerning serious student misconduct in the areas of violence, vandalism, HIB, which is harassment, intimidation, and bullying, weapons, and substance abuse. Those categories are broken down in the column in the middle. The type of incidents are broken down there. And in the center column up at the top, you'll see number of incidents from our report period back in September, December of 2019. To the far right are the number of incidents that were recorded for our current report period 2020 to 2021. As you can obviously notice, there's a significant decrease in the numbers from the report periods back in 2019 to report period in 2020. It's quite apparent that the significant decrease is attributed to the fact that the numbers in 2019 were pre-pandemic and our students were attending school in person, as opposed to our current situation in our remote learning and hybrid structure. The next screen up on the screen, the chart up on the screen, are our violence reports from our elementary schools. And as you can see, we have 0 reports for report period 1. The next slide is our secondary schools. To the far right, we do have a number of HIB reports which were alleged and confirmed, but also no reports of violence in any of our secondary schools. The next slide is a breakdown of our vandalism and substance abuse cases. Our vandalism incidents are all 0 in all of our schools. We did have one substance report under the influence for marijuana. Possessions were all 0. Weapon offenses, 0 reports of weapon offenses for report period 1. Actions taken by our school district, there's a breakdown there. Incidents in which police were notified where no complaint was filed. For report period 1 for this current year, 0. Complaints filed with police notified, also 0. In-school suspension, 0. There was 1 out-of-school suspension, and there was 1 student who was identified as an offender for this current reporting period. And as always, we will continue to strive to bring our school district and our safety teams and anti-bullying specialists together to review all of our data and report as accurately as we can to the board on all of our reported incidents. All right, the next report I'd like to present is our semi-annual harassment, intimidation, and bullying report for report period 1 for our current school year. Well, the first slide you see are all of our current anti-bullying specialists and their assigned schools. Some of our events and initiatives that our staff and students are involved in are Week of Respect, HIB prevention assemblies, classroom lessons, bucket filling, positive programs, social and emotional and character programs. Also, our staff are involved with our district-wide suicide prevention education, and also climate and culture meetings and surveys to strengthen our data and to target our programs and approaches. The next slide is a breakdown of our elementary school investigations. As you can see, there's a comparison up on the screen from 2019 to 2020. The center column is the alleged HIBs, and on the far right-hand side are our confirmed HIBs for 2019 and 2020. And as you can see, there is a little bit of a decrease in the numbers from 2019 to 2020. Our secondary schools, again, a little bit of a drop-off in our numbers from pre-pandemic to our current situation. The center column is our alleged cases, and the far right are our confirmed cases for 2020. Our current cases for this year are one confirmed case, our confirmed HIB. The motivation of the HIB was political views. The locations of the investigated HIBs for this report period were the internet and a cell phone, which is quite telling considering that our students are attending school in a remote learning situation or hybrid situation. Normally we would see different locations more consistent with students attending school in person. Some of the classifications of the actions of the investigated HIB incidents were demeaning, offensive text messages, offensive emails, name calling, and some of the outcomes that were implemented in these investigated HIB incidents were parent-student conferences, counseling, out-of-school suspension, and social skills groups. And that concludes my report period 1 semi-annual HIB report. Yes, the numbers are significantly lower than we typically see. They are definitely lower.
So I have a couple questions, if you don't mind. Number one, with the HIB report, you're getting those facts from all the principals in the schools, or are you, where'd you get those facts?
Our HIB data? Our HIB data is data that I typically compile through our Hipster program. When our HIB investigations are launched and conducted, all of that data is recorded in our Hipster computer program. So that data is taken right out of our district Hipster recording database.
So it should all match what the board received each month, September, October, November, December?
Correct.
Okay. The other question I have is, all of our students from September to December that we have, I think what you're telling me is all of our students are angels except one. Is that correct when it comes to substance abuse?
Can you repeat the comment, Mr. Sargent?
All of our students from September to December are angels except one when it comes to substance abuse. Is that in essence what you're saying?
Well, that was the one case that we did have was the one reported case. If you want to categorize our students as angels.
Well, I think that's what I mean, I can't think of another term other than we have that many angels in our school. Is there another way to describe it? I mean,
Well, I think, if I may, Mr. Sargent, I think, what you're trying to say is the fact that we have not had a lot of reporting happening. So it's not necessarily that things may not be happening, but perhaps they weren't reported for us to investigate.
so why weren't they recorded?
Well, reported, not recorded. So things
Why were
that we
they not?
investigate get reported. We've also had a lot less students in our schools this year, which is why our numbers are so low.
So I think what you're indicating to me then is reported or recorded, however you would like to say it. You're saying that we only have one student that committed an offense.
That was, yes, investigated, reported, and then recorded. That is correct.
And how many students do we have in our system at this point, from September to December, that go to school?
We have about 30% of what we normally have. So we have a lot of students who are on remote learning. And again, if that was investigated, for an example, one of them could have been a remote student who reported being bullied, if it was a bullying, and we would investigate that. So again, we act on either seeing it happen and a teacher reports it, or we act if a student reports it or a parent reports it. So that's how, or if we see it happening, obviously. So in this case, because I truly believe our numbers are low because we have not had all of our students in our classrooms.
So, again, for my clarification, all of those students, only one student out of all of them committed an offense for substance abuse. Is that correct?
That's what the data indicates, correct.
The data indicates it because our students are angels, or because we were asleep at the wheel, or what's the reasoning behind that?
Well, I don't believe we were asleep at the wheel now. Again, I believe we have less students in our buildings, and when our students are in the buildings, we have a lot of health protocols, so we don't have a lot of downtime at all for students. So I believe all of that contributed to a lower number of substance abuse reports or cases.
So I'm looking forward to the next report so that possibly we could see that we don't have as many angels as we're indicating. Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions for Mr. Maluski?
Can you hear me? To add to Mr. Scott's concern, we are supposed to feel and be concerned about things that aren't reported, that we feel should be our concern. That is, it seems unreal that in such a large district that only one person either was caught, reported with drugs. Now, having said that, I have another concern. Nationally, there appears to be a trend of people insulting, abusing, attacking, hurting, killing Asians due to some weird reason, but it's a reality. I would like to know that in this school district, we are being watchful with whomever happens to be our student that happens to be of Asian background. Also, that if we go to a town to play a sport, to perform some kind of contest or competition, that our students, should they run into, meet students who happen to be Asian, that we don't have guilty parties insulting, commenting, or saying anything. So I would like for us to be wary and be concerned about this issue, because I'm sure it will touch or has touched or can touch our school district. Okay, so I just want to make sure that we are concerned.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. If I could just ask you to put your face covering on, Mr. Acevedo, because we're not 6 feet apart. Thank you. So I do want to address the fact that I believe we have very strong programs in our schools. We have wonderful SACs in our schools and wonderful administrators who work very hard to identify students who need substance abuse support. We work hard to do those things, and I do believe that we make a big difference with students. I do, again, believe our numbers are low based on where we stand, but there's always room for improvement. We always seek to do better. In fact, our high school folks have just recently met and are working on some really strong intervention programs versus discipline programs for students who are struggling with substance abuse. So taking a more of a therapeutic approach versus a discipline approach. So we are always looking to improve, and as I said, our high school committee is currently working on that, and I think it will be an excellent addition to what we currently already do. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Malusi.
Just one comment.
Sure.
Understand this. They have no downtime. There is no lunch periods. There is no free time for the kids. So they're on a half-day program in which they have to concentrate on school and no other freedom. So when they're free, they get into trouble. When they're not free, they don't get into trouble. And I think this reflects that.
Are you familiar with the term wake and bake? No, I didn't think so.
Okay, so are there any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Malusi. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Yes, thank you. Good job, Mr. Malusi. So moving forward, I'd like to move to the next item on the superintendent's report, which is our tentative budget. This is the time of the year where we share the workings of our budget and share where we're at this point. Please note it is a tentative budget. We'll continue to be working on it and massaging it and tweaking it as we move on before we strike a final budget in April. Thank you, Ms. Irwin. You'll be clicking for me. So as a reminder, all of our budget information is posted on our district website, all of our presentations, all of our documents. So you can always look there for any updated information and more detailed information. The budget process, we always allow for public input, and we encourage that. We started the process back in January. On January 20th, we did our budget overview of our meetings. And then in February, we had some presentations in regards to certain departments' budgets, what they would look like for this upcoming budget moving forward. We tonight will introduce the tentative budget, and then on the April 28th meeting, we will continue the discussion and refinement of the budget before we actually submit it to our county office and our state. So looking back at some history that we have shared every time we talk about the budget, and as a term that people have come to know very well now, especially in Jackson, is in 2018, New Jersey passed a law known as S2 that drastically reduced the amount of state aid that we would receive. Each year continually got worse. This year is one of the worst cuts to our state aid, followed by next year, which is just as bad. These cuts are applied in each phase, and each year we have to really make some hard, difficult decisions. So not only were we cut this year by $4.3 million in state aid, so we are already starting at a deficit of 4.3, we also have to take into consideration in our budget contract obligations that increase every single year, rising costs. Obviously, there's a lot more software and technology hardware that we use, and those things increase from year to year. Gas prices go up. Increases in insurance premiums go up. Our aid in lieu continually goes up. Tuition for out-of-district students continually goes up, sometimes 5 to 10% every year. And changes to health plans. Most recently, there is legislation that was written into law that school districts need to offer an educational health plan to all of their employees. It's a wonderful opportunity for our teachers. However, it does have an adverse effect on districts who have worked really hard on their health benefit costs to keep them low. Because of that, this district will feel some loss, as that legislation called Chapter 44 allows for less contributions to come from the employee to the district health plan. Normally, there is something called Chapter 78, which were set at higher levels of contribution rates from an employee to their health benefits. Chapter 44 lowers those contributions, hence the district now has to pay more money for health benefits. So keeping that in mind, not only state cuts, but also rising costs in the district, as you can imagine, does not create a very good situation for us here in Jackson in the budget. What you see next is that phase-in process that I just mentioned. We have already cut our budget $7 million in the past years, the last 3 years, and this year, obviously, we have the 4.3, followed by the following year of 22-23, another $4 million. So this upcoming budget for the 21-22 is painful, and so is the following one. The things that you see on this slide are what's supported in our budget. Every year, we look to support these areas in our budget, and you'll see some limited things here as we have a limited budget based on the cuts that are necessary. But we always support our investments in curriculum, technology, co-curriculars and activities, as we know how important they are to educating our students, our special education, our facilities, and our transportation that is very important to keep up and running as well. We've changed our curriculum 5-year adoption plan when we knew that we were going to have significant cuts between last year and this year. So working in the curriculum office, they have adopted for our next year's budget, we will be adopting a world language, PE, and health. This is allowing us a little bit less of resources that are going to be needed in a curriculum budget, although they are still needed. It does have a little bit softer impact for us on the curriculum end. So with that, the impact of this funding loss and the rising costs that we have in our budget, the tentative budget maintains our investments in curriculum and technology, but it maintains them. It certainly does not allow the district to make necessary improvements in our capital, in our facilities, in our capital projects. It also does not allow us to expand and advance our curriculum and programs. It maintains them. It also could lead to some increases in class sizes across the board at every level. We did receive ESSER II. I know the public has probably read the articles, heard the news, that there were ESSER II funds, and we will receive money for ESSER II. And it is going to help us, which is great news, but it's not going to completely solve all of our problems, as we have very deep cuts between the state aid and the rising costs of things in the district. Obviously, we will use every penny that we can towards helping our students with learning loss, and that is absolutely the plan. However, with the budget this upcoming year, we do have to make significant cuts to get to a balanced budget. We will see a loss at this moment in time of 40 positions. Now, most of them are through attrition. We always make a commitment to keeping our teachers in our classrooms, but in order to make the deepest cuts that we have to make, we will have to see some teachers who may be let go due to budget reasons. But again, the majority of them will be through attrition, and we have been starting that from day one of this school year. When we receive a retirement or receive a resignation, we look at that position, we move things around, and we don't fill that position. We try very hard not to lay anybody off, but rather try not to fill a position and maybe shift some work from place to place or other positions. We're hopeful that in the next coming months, we will see more retirements or resignations in which we can do the same. But nevertheless, it's still a loss of 40 positions to our district. The curriculum adoption is reduced to the bare minimum of what we need to maintain our programs. As you saw on the last slide, world language and PE. We're in need of world language licenses that are expiring for our online resources for students, so we will be putting those into this next year's budget for adoption. That is absolutely necessary. We have a loss of many of our Capital One projects in this budget. We'll have a reduction in summer curriculum writing. We often do a lot of writing and improvements to our curriculum in the summer. There will be significant losses there, as well as significant losses to professional development, and reduction in some of our school supply budgets. As was planned for this year as well, we will be looking at our fee amounts and raising those amounts. That was planned to happen this current year, but we put it on pause because of the pandemic. But those rates will be increased for next year to help offset that so that we can continue to offer our athletics and our activities for our student population. So as you can see, there's still significant loss for things in our budget moving forward. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Richardson to give you some of the numbers behind some of the things that I just spoke about.
Received this document when you came in. This is our actual budget figures. This is the one that we've done in-house. It's not the one that we send to the state, but the same numbers are sent to the state. The first page that you have is, of course, the revenue, and the second page is the expenditures that we have. And on that first page, you see that there's a tax levy amount. That is the amount that we ask the township to raise in taxes to support our school budget. The general fund tax levy is up in the upper section of the document. And you'll see also the debt service tax levy. The debt service tax levy is for projects that the township already voted on previously. And this year's proposed budget contains a general fund tax levy increase of 2%. Next slide, please. This budget document, we just highlighted some of the numbers that are on this document. The general fund tax levy, $89 million. That's an increase of $1.7 million, which is a 2% increase. The state aid, as Mrs. Permelli already mentioned, it's $40 million, but it's a decrease of $4.1 million, a decrease of 9.39%. The general fund is decreased. It's now $138,992, $268, a decrease of $3.3 million, 2.37%. Our federal and state programs for the current school year, we had it at $3.1 million. It's a decrease, for the proposed year, it's 3.1, which is a decrease of $1.6 million and almost 35% decrease. The debt, a very minor change in that. And for our total budget of $150 million is a decrease of $5 million from the current school year, 3.25%. Next slide, please. What does this mean for the Jackson taxpayer? The proposed budget is down 3.25%, as I just said. The increase in this tax rate is 0.02 cents. The 2021, because the township is on a calendar year, the tax rate is 1.412 per 100 of assessed home value. The average home in Jackson is considered $329,181. So if that's not the value of your home, you take those first 4 digits and multiply it by that 1.412, and you'll get how it applies to you. But for the average taxpayer in Jackson, it's an increase of $72 per year.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson.
You're welcome.
So, obviously not, I would prefer to be up here and say that we have no budget issues and that we have no concerns. Obviously, we have concerns. There was a lot of work and effort that went into this budget to get to the $150 million budget, a $5 million decrease from last year. It took lots of hard work, looking at every line item, going through everything so that we could preserve as much staff as possible and program as possible. That's always the priority. We know moving forward, we're going to have to be even more creative and work together to find some other ways to meet our next S2 cut. However, moving forward right now, we continue to advocate for our district with the S2 and asking that we have that money, our state aid, restored for Jackson School District. So we are working with representation and legislators. I have recently written a letter to the governor that will be going to him soon. I've actually, in that letter, inviting him to come see Jackson and the wonderful programs that we have here and the wonderful educators, and how the S2 is unraveling much of the wonderful things that we have here. The lawmakers for District 12 have put out a press release saying very much the same. Please help the S2 districts. And I will also be speaking at an open Senate public hearing next week in regards to the same situation. And I will be submitting my letter to the governor to that as well. So we also are part of a Save Our Schools organization who is working tirelessly to also get the word out. And within the next few days, you'll receive a communication from the district asking for all of you, the public, to help support us in getting letters out to our government as well and our legislators advocating for S2 cuts to be paused or to reinstate the funding. So we're going to ask you all in a few days to help us out with that. That will be posted soon and put out via email. So we are still continuing to try and advocate. If not restore our S2 funds, then please help us in some other ways and some other increases that we see in our district. So hopefully we can make some headway with that. But certainly, we have maintained our program in this budget, but it's maintained, and I would much rather us be talking about not just maintaining, but expanding. So with that, I conclude the tentative budget and ask the board if there are any questions.
Have you heard anything about money from the federal government yet?
So there is a rumor and an article in NJ.com that we most recently read, some of you may have read it as well, that with this next stimulus package, there was money put aside, a great amount of money put aside for school districts. We are in the same situation as our community and our board is that we have received no indication. In fact, we met with the county superintendent this week, and we have no confirmation that that money is coming to us. We are remaining hopeful that it does. I believe we will see something, but we have no idea of what it would be and when it will be. But I am remaining hopeful because that will certainly help us as well.
On the way here, I heard on the radio a report, the latest report about the money coming from the federal government. It looks good, hopeful, but the thing is, there's a segment where they're going to give us 30 days to figure it out, to whatever amounts we choose or we decide to have. We're going to have a limited amount of time to discuss it in the district and get to know what we have and we don't have. The thing is, a lot of the things are going to be confusing to the audience, to the public, to the voters, because it's going to seem like a lot of money, a lot of things that are going to be very hard to explain. Most of it seems very hopeful, but it's for every district, and every district will be different. The thing is, our job will have to be to clarify and tell people where we stand and where we don't stand, and what we have and what we don't have. And no matter what anybody gets or doesn't get, it's what goes to Jackson that matters to us, what we're going to fight for. And the thing is, it's going to be a lot of work for the superintendent and the board to make sure that the community understands that the general statements may not fit the Jackson concerns. That's all I want to say.
Yes, I agree. It could seem as if it's depending on the amount of money we get, that it solves all of our problems. But as I presented tonight, the ESSER current money that we have does not solve all of our budget problems. But hopefully, we want to remain hopeful that we'll get a significant amount, but that's yet to be seen.
Over the past 10 years, the enrollment in our high schools are down 14.5%. Our middle schools are down 22%, and our elementary schools are down almost 27%. All the while, our budget has constantly gone up. Our special services budget is up well over 50% over the past 10 years, improvement in instruction over 50%. Our transportation budget, excluding special education, is down 35%. Is up 35%, sorry. We have structural issues in our district that have to be dealt with. We have a budget here that is relying on the ESSER funds to cover the required services that we have to provide as a district. These ESSER funds go away, add on to it another $4.5 million in cuts. We have to cut $8.5 million next year. There simply aren't enough teachers in the district to cut. I think it would be irresponsible for us to pass a budget that's relying on a one-year fix without a clear plan going forward.
Well, as we've discussed in committee, that our enrollment may drop slightly, but we also have increased expenses, as I've outlined before. So it is a difficult budget, and you're correct in regards to this is a tough one to get through, and we need to have a strategic plan for the following budget and another $4 million. And as discussed, we've talked about creating some more opportunities for us to problem solve moving forward, and having a strategic approach to how we meet the next budget. As agreed, we cannot cut another 40, 100 staff members. So we definitely need to think outside the box and do some significant problem solving moving forward.
Our budget, as it concerns population, takes into account that the population of various schools are going down. However, that number is not going to stay down. I don't care what anybody says, population in this town will grow. Okay, now the thing is, if we cut according to the numbers that we have now, we might miss budget as to the amount of students we have in the future and the needs they will have. So very often we look at a budget, we say, well, wait a minute, the numbers went down. But in Jackson, the numbers will go up, especially after this pandemic thing goes away. More people will move into town, and basically there'll be more needs. So I warn people not to always look at the population, because the population, I've been on this board where the population, it just multiplied overnight. That's why we needed extra high schools. So we have to be very careful that we don't always use what seems long-term when it's only temporary. Thank you very much.
The population has been going up. People have been moving here. Real estate values have been increasing tremendously. Everyone's house here is worth at least 15% more today than it was a year ago. But that's still not translating into more children in our schools.
But it will. Just a reality.
Yes.
Just hold it down all the time. All right. The new guy, I'm learning. Thanks. Just a couple of questions. Do we know in your projections on increased class sizes what grade levels that will hit? What will the participation fee increase to? And I can appreciate Mr. Acevedo's statements on that overnight, population has increased. And I don't know this, and maybe it's been done recently, but has a demographic study been done that has given us that actual factual data as opposed to what we've lived through and what we believe, just so that we can look at that and say, this is where we're headed. And I agree with Mr. Herman that yes, house prices have gone up, but we need to know who's coming into the schools so that you can budget accordingly, because it's a big process. Oh, look, it stayed on. Thanks.
So I caught your first question and your third question. I didn't catch the second one. So I got the class size question, so I'll answer that one first. Oh, yes. Perfect. I do have that information. Oh, it's right here. So I'll start with the participation fee. For next year, it will be up for athletics, $75 versus the $50 it is right now. The activity fee will go to $35 versus the $25 it's at now, and the cap for a family will go to $350 versus the $250 it's at right now. You're welcome. Class sizes, we anticipate some increases in our elementary, some of our classrooms, maybe certain grade levels, going up to perhaps as much as 27, 28 students at the high level. At middle school and high school, it will be dependent on the content area, but it could go up as high as 25 to 28 students as well. So they're relatively high for Jackson. We don't typically have classrooms in the last few years that high. So those are about where we see. Again, it'll depend on which content area of where that teacher position gets cut. There was a demographic study done a few years ago. And in that demographic study, they were not anticipating us losing a tremendous more amount of students, which is why we haven't made any move yet. We haven't seen that drastic change yet. They said we would dip a little bit and then we would even out. And so we're watching, obviously, enrollment carefully. We'll continue, but if we need to, we'll take a deeper look at what do we need to do if we see a drastic drop in enrollment. I'm not seeing any other questions. Mr. Herman, do you have a question?
What I was really touching on, I'm not projecting future drops in enrollment. It's our current level of enrollment brings us to a very high expense per child.
Well, we've actually cut $7 million out of our budget over the last 3 years. So it's not that we haven't cut money, and again, you see a cut now. We also have increases in our special education population and the needs of our special education population. Sometimes an individual student could have a nurse that is needed, or a nurse and an aide, or a paraprofessional, or other services, OT and PT. And we've seen an increase in those services that our special education population sees as well. So some of that is to be expected in some increases that you see in our budget. So there are things that have been going up as well. And as I said, we've also cut $7 million out of the last 3 years of our budgets, and this year $5 million.
This year's $5 million is from our budget, but we're expecting to recoup a lot of that money from the ESSER funds. Is that correct?
Not all of it, no. There are some line items that are just truly cuts there. There are some, I'll use an example, the ESSER funds are a permitted allowable use for any technology because it is based on our pandemic costs and the things that we've needed to do. So we've expanded our technology, we've expanded our broadband, so some of our ESSER funds will help support that. And then obviously we've set aside a lot of money for learning loss for our students as well. And then some of the supplies and resources that are allowable uses will be covered through ESSER funds.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anything else? Okay, well, that concludes my superintendent's report.
We're on the standing committee reports. The state and county school boards, the next county meeting is March 23rd, and it will be the 8th grade dialogue at 6:30 p.m. via the internet. Parent group liaisons, Mr. Bernetsky.
Next meeting is April 12th. I'll report on that, obviously, after that meeting.
Special education, Mr. Herman.
We had a meeting, I believe Monday, presented by Ocean County College regarding students with disabilities. We had 11 parents that joined.
Scholarship, Mr. Walsh or Mr. Bernetsky.
So far, the sponsors have posted their scholarships. The students have applied for the scholarships. The Sponsors are now going through the applications and choosing who will win each scholarship, and that will probably last until about the beginning of April, when the committee will get together and start putting everything together.
Buildings and Grounds, Mr. Sargent, Mr. Walsh.
Go ahead, Mr. Walsh.
What I can see is things are going along pretty clearly, except for, I do have a question for Mr. Ostrop. This thing won't stay on. You probably answered this question last month and I wasn't here, but the ground array over at Liberty has been taken out of the project, the solar array? Have we replaced it with something else, or? Okay, so we got permission. I see it's been, the date for this has been pushed back to spring or summer. Okay, is that a construction issue or is that a permit issue? Thank you. So, seeing that, it seems like the Buildings and Grounds are going along pretty good right now. Thank you.
Budgets and Finance, Mr. Walsh, and Mr. Brunetsky, and Mr. Herman.
You've seen it on the screen.
Transportation, Mr. Sargent, Mr. Walsh, and Mr. Herman.
I believe we have a meeting scheduled for this coming week. We have not had any meetings in the past month.
What's that, the 24th?
I believe so.
Ms. Richardson, the 24th is scheduled for transportation?
Yep.
Thank you.
Negotiations, JTAA, Mr. Sargent.
They're ongoing, thank you.
Negotiations, non-certified supervisors, Mr. Sargent.
They're going to be ongoing, thank you.
And negotiations, Teamsters.
They're going to be ongoing, thank you.
Policies and regulations. I need a motion for approval of policies, the first reading.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Herman?
Yes.
Mr. Acevedo? Yes. Mr. Brunetsky?
Yes.
Mr. Sargent?
No.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes. Motion for approval of the minutes from February 17, 2021 closed session meetings, February 17, 2021 Committee of the Whole business meeting.
Motion.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Spalta? Mr. Herman?
Yes.
Mr. Acevedo? Yes. Mr. Brunetsky?
Yes.
Mr. Sargent?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Abstain due to absence.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes. Financial reports. I need a motion for approval of the bill list.
Motion.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Spalta? Abstain. Mr. Herman?
So is this a vote on the whole finance or just on the reports?
This is the bill list.
The bill is, yes.
Mr. Acevedo? I'm sorry, didn't hear you. Okay, thank you. Mr. Brunetsky?
Yes.
Mr. Sargent?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes. I need a motion for approval of the treasurer's and board secretary's reports.
Motion. Motion.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Spalta? Mr. Herman?
Yes.
Mr. Acevedo? Mr. Konetsky?
Yes.
Mr. Sargent?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes. I need a motion to open public forum on agenda items only. Please sign in and state your name.
Second.
Megan Gardella? Is this public forum? Okay, no.
Now it's on.
Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, guys. I just want to say thank you for pushing to get my students in my house back into the classroom 5 days a week. My little elementary students are beyond ecstatic every day. In fact, my kindergartner looked at me and said, "I had this amazing dream, Mom, last night." And I said, "What?" And she said, "I dreamt I got to go to school 5 days a week with no mask on." And I said, "One day." But they're very happy. My middle school student can't wait to head back to school on Monday. I believe her teachers feel the same way, you know, because when I inquire about her really poor grades, it's because she's not in class, you know, and hopefully that all comes together when she has the opportunity to be there. I hope that you guys push for high school students to have the opportunity to go back, should they want to, 5 days. And then I'm going to drop a bomb and say full days by the end of the school year. I think it's very concerning for a parent to think that a year has passed and my students are just now 2 weeks into having 5 days of instruction. I think that I'm very scared that the way that the planning of bringing our students back in, and there's a lot of restraints, the government has restraints, the CDC has restraints, and at some point, I'm nervous that I'm gonna hear that September 2nd or 3rd, whenever that first day of school is gonna be 5 half days. And I can't, as a parent, go a year and a half with my child only receiving 5 half days of instruction. It's really upsetting considering my taxes are gonna go up, which I'm okay with. And we're talking about a lot of other areas of the budget going up. You are getting funding if the public gets information, and NJ.com or whatever it was allowed you to Google put in your town. So it's projected that you guys are gonna get like almost $11 million. There's also, a document that we can read, and it does tell us what those funds are utilized for. It says loss of learning. It talks about HVAC systems. It talks about making areas where it's basically allowing kids to get back into the building under the rules and regulations of the government and what we have going on. So as much as I want my kid in a really small class, and I think that's, it was amazing that my now 7th grader had a kindergarten class that was 15 students. Let me tell you, that was amazing. Now I have a kindergarten student with a class size of 25. It's still amazing. Her teachers are great. She loves being at school. I feel like these are numbers and they're scary to parents, but we have to have our kids in school. It's enough. You guys are up here talking about the lack of, incidences reported for, violence or, drug use, and our kids aren't in school. That's why these numbers aren't there. I'm sure the Jackson PD has different numbers if we were to ask for that information. I mean, let's be real. You guys want the information. We want to tout how great Jackson is. Use the money and get our kids back into the classrooms. Let's be creative. Asbury Park has little bubbles outside. Heat them. Use $11 million from your March of 2020 for all your technology that you used, and now use and make some capital upgrades to get my kids back into the classroom. I want them there 5 full days. I think that the parents of Jackson deserve it. Now, if there's a 30% reduction, or you said something like only 30% of the students are attending school, this is like a really big building, so I'm sure it varies by neighborhoods and cohorts of schools, but let's be creative and use our space. I would like to have the option of my child being in school, not just 5 half days, but 5 full days. I want them to eat. They're not complaining about these barriers that are around them. We joke about it, you know what I mean? One day it'll go away. They're happy to be there. It's important for their social and emotional development. It's important for them academically to achieve. It's important for my kids to get working skills. I mean, what job allows you to show up half-time and turn your camera off? And you're really putting a lot of pressure on the parents, because I am one, to say, well, you put the camera on, but don't sit next to your child. I mean, come on. We have to look at this from a holistic perspective. It's not the parents against the educators and vice versa. We are a community, we are a team, we should be doing so, we should be looking at the facts, and you have a lot of money, possibly, to spend on upgrades that maybe we could take from the restaurant, community where they're doing these types of things to just maintain their business. I mean, how many local restaurateurs have had to do things totally different in order to continue to have a livelihood? You guys are working off of a budget, so you're given a set amount of money, which any business owner would be happy to have, right? You get to get a salary out of that. And I feel that you need to give us what we pay for as a community. Those individuals who are happy to have their students remote, they have that option, and that's awesome for them. I feel like at this point, those parents who would like to see their students in the classroom more don't necessarily have that option coming quick enough, and it's kind of, to be honest, scary to think that there's a chance I'm gonna end with a couple of quarantines and remote 2 weeks periods, and my kids on September 2nd will say, well, we didn't really do 5 days, we're not sure how to do the lunches, so let's see how many staff members are vaccinated and what does the corona look like and the quarantine look like, and then we'll try 5 full days, down the road. I need you guys to be putting yourselves in our shoes. You're the voices of the community, Whether I voted you in or someone else did, you represent all of us regardless. You don't, or you should not have any special interest that you hold up there, that you are only, thinking of one area versus another. We need to get our kids the opportunity, should they want it, to be back participating in our school environment for a little bit more than they are currently. And when I do want to say that I appreciate the efforts, because it could be that I could be standing here like many school districts across New Jersey and my kids might not even be in school. So I get that and I appreciate it. But that doesn't mean that just because we're steps ahead that I'm not going to push for a few steps more. And that's what I tell my kid too. So thank you for taking the time to listen.
Thank you, Ms. Cardell. I know we've had multiple conversations, and we too would like our kids back more, which is why we continue to plan and push forward every step of the way. We too would like to see them more in school, and we will continue to move forward in those efforts.
I'm not sure if this is the time to address what was spoken earlier, or do I wait till the end? Sure, Jackie Capasso, 4 Dunbarton Road. Forgive me if I'm a little upset. I was here for something different, and hearing the board speak, I feel an apology is issued to the students in this town by Mr. Sargent for his derogatory comments, especially involving drug abuse To the fact that you even said wake and bake, are you kidding me? You're representing, you're on the Board of Education. You don't know half the issues that these children have to face in school. And you're calling them angels? You're saying the reports are wrong, and you don't think I can't wait to see all the angels next month? These kids are battling a lot more than they are in school. And for you to talk down like that, there's not even enough money in these programs in school. They fundraise for that. I have done more hours of volunteering than probably everybody here put together for children since my kids were in kindergarten. And I've dealt with many kids who have issues at home and tried to help a lot of kids. But I did not act like that, like, you know what, they're losers, just go, whatever. Oh, all these angels, they're getting high before school. I tried to help them in different ways. But you have parents at home watching this, you have students here, and you think so little, you just say, yeah, wake and bake? Like, I can't believe, I'm so upset that you would even, you're on the Board of Education. How could you talk about these students like that? You could have did it respectfully. This was not respectfully. And I was questioning everybody else, saying, wait, did I just hear that? I can't believe, does anybody else have a problem with the way you address these kids? Jackson has so many amazing students in this town. And there are a lot of kids that are dealing with issues that is horrible. But that's not the way to handle it, just by going by the report, oh, we had one kid. I'm sure there's more. Yeah, there probably is more. I know for a fact that Liberty does an amazing job trying to help those kids. Not just, you know what, you're done, go home. So, I just can't believe how you would talk about students like that. I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Why don't we wait till after the public participation? Well, it's part of this connection.
Sure.
I don't think our board member is insulting.
Your mic is not on, we can't hear you. But why don't we wait till
Mr.
the end of the
Sargent
public
was-
participation for board members to respond?
Mr. Sargent is not insulting or insinuating. He was trying to be realistic, saying, when we hear a report where out of so many students that we have, there's only one, it just seems that needs to be explained. And that keeps us honest.
Yes.
One second, please. I don't think, and I don't come to the defense of Mr. Sargent often, but if anybody cares about the children in the town and anyone in this board, Mr. Sargent is one of them. And what happens is, just as you're excited, he's concerned, and he represents you and me and everyone else. He's trying to say, how could this be? Explain it to me. And sometimes maybe it's hard to ask questions where the answer is not easy to come up with, but those questions have got to be asked. That's what I want to tell you.
Okay,
And I respect you for coming up, and more parents and residents and voters should come up and speak like you did, and you have. But the thing is, when somebody asks a hard question, very often it rubs the wrong, somebody in the wrong way. But he in no way did he intend to say, this can't be right because we don't have just angels.
Okay, but you're sitting here, he's sitting there. You can't say what he felt or meant. I understand where you're giving your opinion, but it could have ended. It didn't. He didn't have to make the comment, I can't wait to see all the angels. That was number one. Then, when someone else was speaking, he interrupted and said, "Did you ever hear of wake and bake?" His comments were derogatory. He should not have spoken like that. And I'm not the only one that felt that. I'm not the only one that heard that. And I wish more people would get online and stand up and say, you know what, that's insulting. That is insulting. I'm lucky I have 3 kids. I never had to deal with that drug issue. But I was fortunate enough to be involved in my kids' lives and do things for them. Not everybody has parents that can do that. And for many kids at Liberty, I became like a mom to them. I would do whatever I had to do for them, to help them, to let them see there is so much more outside of Jackson. There is a life they could have, and not to be small-minded. And the problems that you're facing right now, you can get out of it. There are a lot of kids that stopped smoking that I know of. I didn't have the attitude like, oh, you're a loser, I don't want to deal with you. I didn't treat kids, and I've never treated kids like I'm better than them. But as far as his comments, I know what I heard. It's on report, and there are people at home watching it. He should not have addressed it like that, and I will stand by that. So he's not going to...
Okay, thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Seeing no one else come forward, I make a motion to close public forum.
Second.
Is it okay to speak here? Good evening. Is this on, or I should go? It's on. My name is Maria Froyo. I thank you for allowing me the time to speak on behalf of my daughter Angelica, who is a junior in the STEM program, member of marching band, jazz ensemble, woodwind choir, the National Honor Societies, and many other vital clubs and activities that were once offered here at Jackson Memorial High School. Those activities and clubs are now closed. I am shocked, appalled, and dismayed by the draconian measures that are being forced upon our children, and it is a wound that will not heal, and it is a stain upon our history. I understand you do not have all the powers that you would like to wave a magic wand and to make everything go back the way that it once was. But I am here to cheer you on and to let you know we support you. We want to help you in any way that we can. And if you have even a sliver of power to make discretionary decisions to get our kids back in school 5 days a week, full time, I implore you to use those powers, and we will support you. The CDC has stated months ago that the safest place for students and teachers is in the schools, and that there is no evidence of COVID transmission. Quite the opposite, in fact. It's not like influenza, which is very contagious. We know a lot more now, today, than we did a year ago. Because of this, again, I implore you to have courage and compassion for our kids and reopen our schools, all of them, high schools, everything. Open our clubs and our activities and allow for full-time, unrestricted, 5-day in-person instruction. I love our teachers. They have done an amazing job trying to figure out, in some cases, how to teach their subjects without actually teaching their subjects, because they're not allowed to do that in the classroom. They have done everything to think outside the box, but a year is too much. You can't keep trying to figure out how not to let your kids play music because you can't play the instruments in the classroom, which brings me to my next point. Sports such as wrestling, basketball, and cheerleading have been having their practices with full rosters, practice times, limited mask wearing while playing, and that's great news. I applaud that. Why then can't Jazz Ensemble have equal access and equal opportunity to enjoy their activities? Jazz Ensemble is not being treated equally in this regard. I trust the band director, Mr. Diaz. He has the safety of our kids as his top priority. In the past, we have allowed him to travel with our kids all across this great nation, including taking 230 band members on an airplane to Disney World. But now, he can't teach 25 kids jazz ensemble down the hall in this building. They're not allowed to play. I understand that there is some trial period going on now, and again, I applaud that, but it really is some draconian measures, and I would like them to be lifted, and I would like them to be able to freely play. Remote learning is not working in our schools. I want to talk about our STEM program. We need to fulfill our obligation and provide quality instruction worthy of a STEM accreditation. AP Chemistry has no lab work. No labs, no experiments. Now it's almost a year. That's unacceptable. Engineering is using Legos and blocks in lieu of computer-assisted design software because the software is not available for home use. Robotics with limited use of robots because we don't have enough robots for all the STEM students, and you can't use robots at home remotely because there's not enough of them to go around. Concert band has no live music because indoor playing is not allowed during their band class. Gym is a wake-up call. A wake-up call in the morning. Get up, we're gonna not have gym, but you still have to get up and check off that you're here. That's just, we can't do it anymore. My daughter Angelica, once an academic achiever, no longer wants to get out of bed. What's the point, she says? Angelica can no longer endure the needless isolation and insufferable Zoom meetings. Her emotional reservoir has reached its maximum, highest capability. She's had it. So I implore you, I'm here to cheer you on. I'm not here to just complain. I want you to have courage, because courage is contagious. It is a vital component. Courage, we need to have that. We need to move forward. I understand not everybody may want to move forward at the same time. That's fine. You can stay where you are. But the rest of us, we want to move forward. We're ready to go. We're Americans. We figure things out. We make a plan. We modify. We accommodate. That's what our special education program is all about. Modifying, accommodating. That's all our teachers and our students have been doing. We can do this. We absolutely have to do this. Our students have AP exams coming up. How are they going to be able to pass their exams? My daughter has commented to me, I forgot how to talk to people. I don't know how to talk to people anymore. So what does it matter? It's a sin. It's going on too long. We have to move forward. I implore you to have courage, to have compassion. I know that it's hard. Everybody just wants to stay stuck in the same spot and not move. They don't want to be the first one to move and make a mistake, but we really need to do this, and the parents are supporting you. Please reopen the schools. Please reopen the clubs, the activities. That's how we keep our kids off drugs. They're in clubs and activities. I used to pick my daughter up from this high school at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. I would bring her dinner here. The clubs, the activities that we did once offer here, they are vital. That's what keeps them going. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for your time. If you have a question, I'd be happy to take any of your questions.
I'd just like to say thank you and just make a few comments if you don't mind. First of all, I appreciate you offering your support. It has definitely been a difficult year. We have many guidelines that we are required to follow, and I have to do my job related to that. However, here's some positive news I think that you'll be happy about. As I announced in my superintendent's report, we are taking steps to move things forward. not only in combining our hybrid students in Group 1 and Group 2, but our administrators, we actually have both of our high school principals sitting here tonight, have been working with club advisors to begin making plans to do just as you say, to offer more club opportunities in person, including our music happening in our schools. We are making plans right now, and once we feel we have a solid plan, we'll be announcing that probably within the next week as well. So there's lots of good things happening as we move forward. Our state guidelines right now say that music shouldn't be played and singing shouldn't happen. But we are again feeling that we're in a little bit different place, and maybe we can move some of that forward. So there are definitely things happening and planning happening. We feel the same way. We want to see more students in our schools. We understand the mental health component of this. It is now becoming a mental health crisis. We need to have students here, which is why we're taking these next steps to get as many students as we can in safely, and then we'll continue to make more steps after that. So I want you to know that we understand your perspective and where you're coming from, and certainly we have empathy for it and agree that we want to do more and more as we safely can. So I thank you for your support to us for doing that and understanding that this has been difficult, having to manage expectations by our health department, our government, and whatnot. I do want to also say that we listened to the governor a little bit this morning, and he did say something to the effect, or this afternoon I should say, that the fall is hopeful for full return all day, not half day, back to what school should look like. So we were very happy to hear that, because that's what we want as well. So with that, again, I want to thank you for your comments. They're appreciated, and hopefully you'll see some differences happening in the next few weeks.
Anyone else have a question or comment for me? I didn't know. I just wanted to give you the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Public forum after this, right? Oh, I just want to make sure there's still public forum. I didn't know, like, when you guys said earlier, like, to close the forum, I didn't know if that meant public forum for later.
We didn't realize that there were additional speakers, so you're welcome to speak.
You want me to go now or after? I can go after.
This is on agenda items only. Are you discussing something that we've already discussed this evening?
Off the agenda.
I'm sorry?
Off the agenda.
Then there's another public session at the second portion of the agenda, so this is just on agenda items that have
Okay, thank
been
you. I just want to make
discussed.
sure.
Yeah, no problem.
Megan Gardella. Can I just say, you know, I was actually very impressed when you said that you're going to be sending out district information for us to reach out to the Senate or the governor regarding the S2 funding. Is it also something that, you know, you can help kind of rally up some community members and parents who want to have our students be able to be in the classroom more? You know, there are a 6-foot versus a 3-foot kind of discrepancy of students being able to be together. I don't know if that would be helpful for school lunches and whatnot, but, you know, if we are all on the same page and looking for the same things, then maybe we can also, you know, inquire for parents to reach out to the governor or our assemblyman or whoever that is, to ask for them to adopt the CDC guideline versus...
He works for you too. Just follow the same pathway for this SOS and send him a little note about what you just discussed.
I realize what you're saying, and I appreciate that. I'm just trying to get more people to do it. I was just hoping that you guys would be helpful with the voices, but that was it.
Seeing no one else come up, we're going to close the first forum.
Motion. Resolutions for actions. Now I need a motion to move finance.
Motion?
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, I'm looking over here for number 7. Was that something that was bid out or that wasn't required to be?
Number 7 is,
Yeah, number 7.
okay, that is the appointment of our risk management and consultant agreement. We're renewing it, the one that we currently have.
Did that go out for a bid?
It did at one time, yes. We're
I mean,
renewing
Did it, oh, so it didn't go out for an additional bid?
it. It did, it went out on an RFP.
They were the only company that bid?
No, I believe we had 4 companies bid. It was a couple years ago.
A couple of years ago. And we don't want to rebid it, you know, it's been a few years.
It was a decision that I asked the board at that time. We have not, you know, we go out on some of our professionals each year. It's not every year that we bid out every professional.
Right, no, I just like using local companies if possible. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a few questions, a few statements. 15, 16, 17. Okay, could you explain why we're reformulating all of those grants?
Sure, Ms. Richardson, I can explain this. This is in relationship to money that, due to the pandemic, we needed to shift around because we didn't have certain expenses that we anticipated using that money for, because either we had less students or it was no longer a service that was available, so money needed to be shifted around. A prime example is we put some of our intervention teachers into the classroom this year, so we needed to pay their money out of part of their salary out of the general fund versus a grant fund. So it's those types of moving around of money.
Okay, you're making it fit the grant.
Correct.
Sorry, a number 11.
No, it's the cost of, the cost is stated there. It's going to be $381,110. There's not a extra cost to it.
So there is no early payoff fee.
No.
Thank you.
Just 2 comments. Number 6, I'd like to see this because people have been asking for this for a long time. We have a problem getting subs in the district because we're the lowest paying district in Ocean County. So now we are at par with all of the other districts, so we'll have a better chance of getting subs. And number 8, okay, chapter 44 is hurting us now, will be killing us in the future, so we do have to let the state know, okay, with this resolution, that they need to change this. That's it.
Roll call.
Mr. Spaltov?
Abstain.
Mr. Herman?
I'm a no on number 4, no on number 7, and no on number 9. Everything else is a yes.
And I'm sorry, didn't hear the rest of it.
Sorry, I'm a no on the budget. I'm a no on number 7 for Glen Insurance, and I'm a no on number 9. Everything else is a yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Acevedo? Yes. Mr. Brunetsky?
Yes.
Mr. Sargent?
No on number 4, no on number 7, yes to everything else.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes. Motion to move facilities.
Motion?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Spalta?
Abstain.
Mr. Herman?
Yes.
Mr. Acevedo? Yes. Mr. Brunetsky?
Yes.
Mr. Sargent?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes. Motion to move programs.
Motion.
Discussion?
Number 7. Okay, is this paid for out of COVID money?
No, Mr. Walsh, this is out of our Title III grant service money, so it's still grant money, but it's out of Title III. Those are monies that we get every year for our ELL and immigrant population.
All right, so that's Title III.
Yes.
Okay, and with number 8, which is on the addendum, okay, does this mean we are now teaching behavioral assessment and treatment over Zoom?
This is a professional development opportunity for some of our teachers. Some of it will be done through Zoom virtually. This is how some PD has been offered. So yes, some of it will be virtual PD for our teachers.
But it's not students, it's just teachers. Okay, all right.
Correct.
I
There'll be
misunderstood.
case studies that they will consult with our teachers on, these professionals, but there will not be students working with the professionals or anything over Zoom.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Roll call.
Mr. Spalta? Mr. Herman?
Yes.
Mr. Acevedo? Mr. Brunetsky?
Yes.
Mr. Sargent?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes. Motion to move students.
Motion?
Second?
Discussion.
Yes, I see that there are 3 different agencies listed for nursing services. Do we need all 3? Meaning 1, 2, and 3?
We do, but I'm going to ask Dr. Taylor to speak to this. She obviously oversees these recommendations.
Thank you.
How are you? There's an incredibly significant shortage of nursing right now in the state. We are approving agencies so that we have more options for when students want to return back in schools. We have about the majority of our students who require nursing are currently on remote instruction, and one of them, it took over a month to find a nurse. So this is really a precaution so that when students begin to return, that we have enough agencies to explore the possibilities of staffing and providing the required services as per their IEP.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Mr. Spalta? Mr. Herman?
Yes.
Mr. Acevedo? Yes. Mr. Brunetsky?
Yes.
Mr. Sargent?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes. Motion to move personnel.
Motion.
Second?
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Spalta? Mr. Herman?
Yes.
Mr. Acevedo? Yes. Mr. Brunetsky?
Abstain on anything transportation related, yes to everything else.
Mr. Sargent?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes. Motion to open public forum on any topics. Please sign in and state your name.
Motion.
Second?
Hi, I'm Michael Rodriguez from Jackson Liberty. I'm a senior, and I'm here to just ask some questions about us getting the green light for our senior prom. There's been a lot of confusion, like if we're actually going to be confirmed to have it. I know we're waiting back from just like a response if we're allowed to have it. There's a rumor like that's going around that it's not going to happen because there's complaints coming in from Memorial parents because they decided to cancel their prom. We decided to move our prom outside. It's at the Ocean Place in, I don't know the town, Long Branch. And we made sure that we could have as many people there as we could. And we find it really important that we have a prom. We're the senior class that has gone through COVID not once or not 1 year, but 2. We lost our junior formal, we lost homecoming, we lost battle of the classes, we lost a regular football season. We weren't able to attend our basketball program's games. I mean, they both made it to the playoffs, and we couldn't go and support them. And We feel that we lost a lot this year, and if we lost prom, it would really like take a toll on a lot of people. I know especially the girls, they really want a prom. A lot of them bought formal dresses, and then they didn't have formal, and I know even some bought prom dresses. We just feel that we need a prom. Not need it, but we deserve it, because we all have been working hard over the past couple years, and this is like the one moment, like high school all leads up to senior prom, like when everyone could just celebrate, like by then we're all committed to college, and like we know where our future's gonna be. It's our one last chance to have a nice night with all of each other before it's too late.
Tell me your first name again.
Michael?
Michael?
Michael, yeah.
Michael. Hi, Michael. So, first of all, thank you for coming to speak. I appreciate that. This is the right forum to do that. So, this has been a difficult year for many, many people, right? And I have complete empathy for that. I had a senior last year who lost things, including his graduation. And they did not do any in-person graduation. So I understand that and come from it not only as an educator, but as a parent. And so what's difficult for us is we've always been in sync in our schools, right, between our two high schools. But this year has to be a little bit different. So the good news is that yes, Liberty is moving forward with their prom. Okay, so the rumor is not true. Okay. So that's the good news. But here's the component that I will say, and I know Mr. Brignola put information out about this yesterday, is that we have to proceed carefully in regards to what's going to be allowed at that time. We want to remain hopeful that all of the normal things that you would do at a prom would be available. Now, Liberty is able to move forward because they have a smaller class size than Memorial does. And so that makes a big difference in this decision. It's also based on students who have asked for certain things and requested certain things within our schools. So the decision has not been easy, and both high school principals are here tonight in case there were any questions about that. But we need to be careful moving forward with Liberty because we're not sure what the restrictions will be at the time. Again, we want to remain hopeful with all the positive news we're hearing about, increases of allowing for more gatherings. But right now, the outdoor gathering is 50 people. So we're watching it carefully and hopeful that the prom can exist the way you all want it to exist. It might look different, it might still happen, but perhaps maybe eating is not happening. Perhaps maybe dancing is different or not happening. Bless you. So I just want to put that caution out that it may not be exactly what everybody thinks of a traditional prom. It might look a little bit different, but right now the event is still happening. And we're hopeful that it will happen with everything, normally. But it is a difficult decision to make in regards to doing something different in the two high schools. But the rumor is false. The event is happening. And again, Mr. Brignola, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but I know you put communication out yesterday that said just that.
I would just like to say that obviously we want to have the prom, and I'll echo what you said. You guys deserve it. If the prom was to be tomorrow, we wouldn't be having it based on the guidelines. So that's what we have to, as Ms. Cormilli said, we have to watch very closely and very carefully what the governor is going to allow us to do. So it's all about restrictions and the guidelines that are in place at the time of the prom, which is scheduled for June 4th. So we're hopeful by that time things will be lifted, just like they did last year for the graduation, even though it was way late in the summertime, but we were able to have it in person. It all comes down to what he's going to allow. All right? So, like I said, if it were to be tomorrow, it wouldn't be able to take place because we couldn't bring the people there. So, keep your eyes and ears open. That's what we're doing, with our fingers crossed, to get you guys around.
Thank you.
I have another question.
Okay.
Say like prom, we do get the green light. We had a form go out in our Google Classroom about how it would be only Jackson Liberty seniors. I just had a question about that because I know, like you guys all said today, we plan to hopefully bring all the high school students back. And so my question was, if we're bringing everyone back and we're all in the same Jackson Liberty building, what would be the difference of us bringing a junior, sophomore, freshman to prom? Because we do every day, we're in the same building as them, we're in the same circuit, like we pass each other in the hallways. Some of us even share classes with lowerclassmen than seniors. What would be like the difference of why wouldn't they be able to come?
So Michael, it's a good question. Again, it has to do with guidelines and capacity rules right now. The expectations of what we're supposed to follow right now is 50 people in an outdoor gathering. So I'd hate to say guests are allowed, and then all of a sudden, everybody's made an investment in, as you said, tuxes or gowns, and now we can only have 150 or 200 people, and then guests would not be allowed to come. So we're keeping it as a senior event so that we avoid that because of the capacity numbers that will probably be in place, and we don't want to have to turn anybody away. So that's really the basis
Is that
of
like confirmed? Like, is that in the, like, because as you said, if the guidelines do loosen, will we get notice of that so that we can maybe bring out, hypothetically speaking, if next month Governor Murphy comes out and says we could have 500 people gatherings, would we be allowed to bring an underclassman?
Okay, it's hard to hear with the mask. So I think you asked if, like, tomorrow Governor Murphy comes out with 500 is allowed, would we allow guests? Is that your question?
Yes.
Well, listen, if it came out soon enough, yeah, we could make that decision. But right now, that doesn't look good at 50. So I feel that we need to make the decision that right now it's a senior event only.
What's the least or the last date we would know for that, so we can just plan, so we can at least like have like keep us in the loop, because sometimes some of us, especially I know some of the students at home that couldn't make it today, they feel out of the loop. They don't know what's going on. There's been a lack of communication of what's going on with our prom, and we just want to know, like, what's the last date where we can make a decision on who can come and if it's happening?
So I would need to discuss that with Mr. Brignola, and I would also ask if you feel that you're not being communicated with, that you discuss that with your building administrators about how more communication can come to the students.
No, I think Mr. Brignola has given us all the information he has. I don't think we've had that's why a lot of us, there's a couple of us back there that came tonight, because we wanted to talk to you directly, because...
You can always talk to me. So as Mr. Brignola knows, I'm very approachable. If you have questions of me, I'd be happy to come to the high school and meet with you all and talk to you. So I'm always approachable. So if you feel that there's more information that you like, I'd be happy to sit down with you all and go through things. But again, Mr. Brignola is obviously it's the chain of communication that flows in a district is normally how it happens. But if you feel that I need to be there, Mr. Brignola, if you feel you need me to come and answer more questions, I am available. So just let Mr. Brignola know, okay?
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome, thank you.
He's my son. Hi, I'm Jennifer Rodriguez, and I'm Michael's mom. I just had a question to the school board. I know we're dealing with the classification of 50 people. What would happen if the parents decided to take over the event? Would the senior class get the money that is funded for their prom, and the parents handle the prom outside of their own if you guys have to shut it down?
Again, the masks make it hard to hear, I'm sorry. So are you asking if the parents take over the prom?
Right, if you guys have to say, because right now it's being classified, I understand, as 50 people. For whatever social event, however you classify it, every area or congregation or event has a limit. Like you can have a sporting event, there was 25,000 people at the Super Bowl, whatever. If we want the parents take over, you guys have to say no because it's a 50 minimum event. The parents take it over. We just want them to have their prom and the money that they raised for their prom. So would the school board give their money that class raised so that we can take that money and go to, either if we do a different event, we do it at that place, but the Jackson School District is not involved with it.
So I understand your question now. So that's the risk that the class takes and that Mr. Brignola and I discussed in the fact that money is in a contract, right? So when you sign in an event, there's a contract that you have to sign and there's certain amounts of deposits that have to be made along the way. And so you get to a point of no return, right? You need to have this event. So that's where we're at with Liberty. Hence why we didn't make the decision moving forward at Memorial, because Memorial has a much larger class, double the size. And so we felt, and, you know, Mr. DiEugenio, working with the student population over in Memorial, felt that this was not going to work well for them because it's likely that perhaps those numbers will not reach that. So they had to pull out of their contract so as not to lose money so that they could offer something different for their students. Hence, they made their decision for a senior event, which I think will be a fabulous event for the students. At the point that we're at Liberty, would you like to speak to that, Mr. Brignola?
Even if you, let's say we gave you all the money, you still wouldn't be able to have it at Ocean Place. They won't allow you to have it right now.
Okay.
So we're following Ocean Place, who's following the government. If tomorrow he came out and said, outside the bed, 500 people, I mean, here he's That's what we're waiting for. So even if we were able to say, yes, you guys take it over, you wouldn't be able to have it at Ocean Place because the limit right now for outdoor gathering is 50.
Okay, so if us being as parents, and we start to go to Plan B right now and find a place that would accommodate them, because there are places that accommodate.
There's state guidelines, man.
We're not going to violate the governor's order.
No, but there are people that are having weddings nowadays and stuff
That's
like
correct,
that.
because if you look at and in fact, if you look at the link that was sent out in the communication yesterday, it goes over the guidelines. We watch them very, very carefully. Weddings, receptions are different than just...
Right, it's all how we label it. It's
I
like
know,
we
and
label
listen,
it.
I don't make the rules.
No, I understand
But
that.
we
I
have to
understand
follow
that.
them, yeah.
No, I know, it's
Yeah.
all how it's labeled. That's the
Yeah.
key factor. So if we have to label it, whatever we need to label it,
Okay.
we'll label it.
At this moment, that it isn't going to be an option to get money back if we are at the place.
All right, so so they wouldn't get their, so right now, because it's contracted at Ocean Palace, they're gonna, if it doesn't happen, they lose their money, basically.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Lainey Goldberg. I have a follow-up question to that. If the prom has a 50-person cap, does that mean graduation has a 50-person cap at this point? Yeah.
That's a great
So
question.
right now, we have no graduation.
At this, if it were tomorrow.
Yep.
We have asked multiple times to our Department of Education and our governor to give us some guidelines so that we can plan. As you saw in the communication probably yesterday that went out, 2 families at the high school, we want an in-person graduation for all of our students. And that's how we're moving forward planning for that, because that's what we want. And we are hopeful, and we have obviously really put some pressure on our Department of Education and our governor to give us some guidelines so we can begin planning that right now.
So the graduation guidelines are different than the sporting guidelines. So like when we had a football game, we were allowed to have more people than we would be able to have at a graduation on the same football field.
Okay, they've changed those guidelines?
Since September, they did. Backwards.
Yes.
They
So,
actually went right before the playoffs. There were some outbreaks and it went from 500 to 100.
I just want to make sure everybody can hear that. The guidelines have changed.
Right.
As Mr. Brignola just said, the guidelines have changed from the fall. Again, we don't make the guidelines, but we
Understood.
certainly are advocating hard. There has been nothing said to us about graduation yet. We're trying to push for an answer so that we can begin planning. And again, they've made some changes from the fall once there was the second curve, according to officials and the health department, which is why there's more restrictions on numbers right now. I'm remaining hopeful that those will be lifted soon as you see things being lifted, but I don't have a crystal ball to.
I hope
to
so,
make that.
because I know that basketball games just had, a parent or 2 at each player.
Again, the
and
governor
that's-
made that change
So
and
there's
said that
different
2
numbers,
parents.
and
Yep.
that's indoors.
I know, it stinks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Leslie Bone. I have a senior at Liberty as well. My question to you is, about a month ago, the governor raised the allowing spectators to attend sporting events. Our district decided not to allow that. I would like to know, how would we know that you would continue to follow his orders?
We did allow for spectators, 2 parents we're allowed to have 2 adults at every game, and I believe that that has been happening.
Except at bowling.
I'm sorry.
And that was
Oh, except at bowling, is that what you said?
except the bowling. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, we missed senior day, who I was kindly told, Mrs. Bone, you can watch it on live stream. It's unfortunate that the Shore Individual Championships, who I've had multiple conversations with Mr. Lester, who oversees our bowling event, that our Shore Conference allowed the bowling center to allow their league bowlers in while our athletes competed, and their parents were not allowed to go in and watch them compete. It's incredibly disheartening that we as a community allow people who are not related to these children, who not support them throughout their careers as athletes and as students, but yet their businesses who are helping to pay their bills were allowed in the building. So I'm confident that you will continue to uphold what the governor says, but unfortunately, I was in 2 situations recently where that wasn't the case. So I'm just going to be hopeful that we can be assured that you will be. Because as a parent, to not be allowed to go watch my student athlete and then a building full of people who have nothing to do with our student athletes can go watch them, and college recruiters were there, but me as a parent couldn't watch my student athlete, it's very hurtful.
Well, I would agree with you. It's just not a good situation, and I understand what you're saying. So I will be clear, though, that we have followed all of what we're required to do. Again, doesn't mean that we're always in agreement, but we're required to do it. And it sounds like in this situation, what I just heard was that unfortunately, that was the bowling alleys requirement of us. But I agree with you. That's awful.
It would have just been nice if the bowling center would have then, and I'm speaking of Ocean Lane specifically, they told us that the parents couldn't go in, no one else was allowed in, then college recruiters, and then their league bowlers were allowed in.
Right.
And I, as a member of the Shore Conference, would like our team of people that support us to say, listen, this can't go both ways.
Right.
So I'll just be hopeful that for the future sports, they don't have to endure what we did.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Seeing no one else come forward, I make a motion to close public forum.
Second.
Board comments, Mr. Sargent.
Thank you all for coming. Drive safely. Have a good night.
Mr. Spaltoff.
I just want to thank the board for their support in my nomination this evening and in your yes votes. I do just briefly want to touch on the pain that our superintendent and the administrative team are feeling in regards to CDC releasing certain guidelines and New Jersey Department of Health not picking up on those soon enough. Personally, I'm a superintendent in another district, and so I live this on a daily basis. And I also have parents and students and staff who are upset that CDC releases one thing, and they anticipate us to be able to do that immediately. And it just isn't the case, and we have to follow the New Jersey Department of Health guidelines. So I appreciate those that came forward tonight and spoke, both as students and as parents advocating for your children. I understand it. I have twins in the 8th grade at McAuliffe who are extremely active and have missed out on some great events. But I am looking forward to Monday when they get on the bus and go to school as well. So thank you for your support again.
Mr. Herman.
I'd really like to thank, really want to like to thank Kevin Howell for allowing a very large amount of our teachers bus drivers to be accident tonight. In addition, congratulations to Mr. Zolotov for your appointment, and I want to thank everyone who came out. There is another election in 3 months, 4 seats open, and I'm sure you can make it very hard for everyone here running for re-election to fight for our seats. Thank you.
Mr. Brunetsky.
I want to thank Mr. Maluski for his report tonight. Thank you. I want to thank, it was nice to see some public participation for a change here. Nice to see the fire in you guys. I think some of it needs to be directed at Trenton, and we need to look into ways of directing that. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Thanks for coming out.
Mr. Acevedo?
Congratulations to our new board member and to the candidates who made it this far. We had a great pool of candidates. We're very fortunate. The one thing is that when we talk about population before, the one great population concern of mine is the classroom. If we start saving money by making the classrooms too crowded, we might as well throw the money away. Secondly, as it deals with the pandemic, it's out of our control. The one thing is if the students if they're still here, if you want something done, make sure that you get yourself together and you say, we're going to cooperate, we're going to work together and not create more problems. Support yourselves, but at the same time, once you get something that you can do, make sure that you don't go outside the borders of the lines, because it's that dangerous. If one child gets sick, one parent gets sick, somebody dies, the tragedy cannot be repaired. So we have something to deal with it. The damn virus is still there. It will be there for weeks, for months. We must think of it first. We must be safe. We must be healthy. We must be concerned. And Mr. Oswald, I would like to say something about you. You said you'd fix the Rosenauer, turn off the lights. You did. Thank you very much. Very good. We saved some money. Thank you.
Mr. Walsh?
I wasn't here last month when Mr. Ostrov's retirement was on the agenda. I would like to say one thing. I worked with you in many capacities here, and you have made this district a much better place for being here. Thank you. Then a year in resilience and hope. Stumbled upon that in my emails. Kudos to the AV, Jackson TV, and the superintendent. Okay, very good job. If you haven't seen it, very good job. Middle school, high school, right around the corner. They're returning. We're taking steps. We're going there. I know for some people it's not fast enough, but we're getting closer to normalcy. I know people want to keep pushing the issue. That's fine. But we still have to follow the rules of the state of New Jersey. So it's getting brighter. Have a good St. Patty's Day.
I want to thank you, everyone, for coming, the presentations, the input, and the comments. I want to welcome Mr. John Spaldoff to the board and look forward to working alongside you. Ms. Primelli and her team have been doing an amazing job and working tirelessly, which shows commitment to this district. And everyone have a great and safe night. Motion to close.
Need a second.
Motion to adjourn by acclamation.
So be it.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Any
Share at
opposed?
any time.